Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Back in 1987, Encounter at Farpoint was the feature-length pilot for Star Trek The Next Generation. This opening episode of Star Trek's latest TV incarnation would introduce us to a raft of new, well-drawn characters, and would also celebrate the cast of the original show before its story's end, though not all of the actors would play the parts that they were initially cast for. The episode would also unveil the brand new Enterprise D and its novel trick of separating its saucer from the ship's main body in times of danger. It would also give us our first glimpse of the holodeck, a recreational device that would play an important part in the lives of the ship's crew, though TNG wouldn't be the first Star Trek show to feature such a device. This episode would promise us 2 potential romances and introduce us to a recurring villain called Q, who would spell trouble for Jean-Luc Picard throughout the show's 7-season run. In this first adventure for Captain Picard and his crew, the Enterprise is on its way to the remote world of Deneb 4. The planet is populated by the Bandai, who have mysteriously managed to generate enough energy to build a major space base called Farpoint, despite their world having limited resources.
Perhaps I will better understand this.
But the Enterprise's journey is interrupted when a powerful being called Q decides to intervene. Q accuses humanity of being a savage race, with a barbaric history that has no right to explore the galaxy.
That nonsense is centuries behind us.
Picard and the Enterprise try to escape Q's clutches. During this confrontation, he orders the separation of the saucer section of the ship, which houses the families of his crew and non-combatants. Picard fails to escape Q and is placed on mock trial for the crimes of humanity. He cleverly argues his way out of the proceedings by asking Q to judge him only on how he deals with the upcoming mission to Deneb 4. Q agrees to this and allows the Enterprise to continue its journey.
There'll be no legal trickery.
These will be your own words, Your Honor.
And waiting there are 3 new members of the Enterprise crew, Dr. Beverly Crusher, her son Wesley, and Picard's new first officer, Will Riker. While meeting and greeting on behalf of the Federation, Riker begins to notice a strange anomaly on this mysterious planet. When he rejects the offer of fruit because there's no apple to be had, another bowl of fruit magically appears nearby, containing an apple. This peculiar wish fulfillment occurs again while Riker is chatting with Beverly Crusher in the marketplace. Her preference for a dress with a golden touch is suddenly put right. The Enterprise is now in orbit around the planet, and all 3 new crew members teleport to the ship. Picard's meeting with Crusher clearly isn't the first, and their stilted conversation suggests a romantic entanglement from the past, or perhaps one they both secretly wish in the future.
Dr. Crusher.
Captain.
Soon the captain charges his new first officer with the task of reattaching the Enterprise's saucer. He performs this delicate task with calm confidence, immediately impressing his new crewmates. And now a team from the ship will visit Deneb 4 to investigate the anomaly that Riker observed, which will uncover a tale of desperation, greed, and unwarranted abuse. Later in this video, I'll be taking a closer look at the amazing holodeck and the Enterprise D. But let's explore the creation of this series and the stories behind its casting first. Encounter at Farpoint was co-written by Gene Roddenberry himself, the creator of the original series, and the somewhat reluctant creator of TNG. He was only inspired to take the reins of the show when he saw the early lackluster concepts for this new incarnation. Paramount Television was happy to have him back on board, but they were bitterly unhappy with the lukewarm reaction to the project by the big US networks of the time. NBC, CBS, and ABC all turned down the show, and Fox wanted partial control if they were to air it on their fledgling network. Paramount decided to bypass the networks altogether for a more lucrative first-run syndication deal, utilizing over 200 independent stations and network affiliates across the US. Roddenberry was instrumental in the casting of the show too. With the help of the casting team, he would assemble a crew of actors that would display a synergy and chemistry that's extremely rare. Patrick Stewart was always in the frame for a role in TNG, but Roddenberry had to be persuaded to cast him as Captain Jean-Luc Picard. His preference was for a French actor to fill those boots because the character was written as a Frenchman. But having failed to find anyone more capable than Stewart, he finally succumbed and changed his vision of the character to suit the Shakespearean actor's strengths. Roddenberry's favourite for the role of Will Riker was always Jonathan Frakes, but he was only the second favourite of the casting team. Consequently, Frakes had to endure multiple auditions against stiff competition before finally securing the role. And then there was the role of Macha Hernandez to fill. If that character name doesn't ring a bell with you, it's because the character name was changed to Tasha Yar, eventually played by Denise Crosby. But Crosby actually auditioned for and won the part of Counsellor Deanna Troi, eventually played by Marina Sirtis, who initially auditioned for and won the role of Macha Hernandez. Roddenberry had a late change of heart and switched the roles of the actresses, changing the name and character of Hernandez to suit Crosby's energy. And we might not have had our weekly Klingon fix of Worf if it hadn't been for the sterling work of Michael Dorn in this opening episode. Worf was designed as a recurring character who would appear only occasionally in the series. But Roddenberry enjoyed Dorn's work so much that he made Worf an intrinsic part of the Enterprise crew. I could blame the visor, but it took a long time before I recognized LeVar Burton from another favorite show in my DVD collection. His role as Geordie LaForge simply didn't trigger the fact that he also played the young Kunta Kinte in the classic miniseries Roots more than a decade before. And Brent Spiner had serious competition for the role of Data, not least from Patrick Stewart at one stage when it was put to Roddenberry that he could play that part if another actor was found for Picard. But Spiner's main competition was Eric Munyak, who himself would play a role in TNG as the Traveller. And what of those other machine characters that played such a big part in this new Star Trek adventure, the holodeck and the Enterprise D itself? As I mentioned earlier in this video, TNG wasn't the first Star Trek series to feature a holodeck. That honour went to Star Trek the Animated Series, a show that ran for 2 seasons in the 1970s. It only features once in that series in an episode called The Practical Joker, and it's called The Rec Room, but by any other name it certainly is the prototype for TNG's holodeck. The 80s show had a fairly limited budget in its first season, and that is clearly evident in some scenes set on Deneb 4. But it seems that no expense was spared to bring the holodeck to life in this first outing for the TNG crew, with its realistic forest setting, complete with streams and sky. I searched high and low to find out if this scene was shot on location or on a set, or a mixture of both, and there was no convincing answer. But if this truly is just a set-based scene, then the environment they created is very impressive, and probably very expensive. It was a particularly useful space for Data, who often used it to explore his growing imagination and safely improve his social skills amongst the artificial humans of the holodeck. It would also become a popular storytelling device for the writers of the show, appearing in many episodes during the 7-season run. The Enterprise D itself was a Galaxy-class ship capable of carrying over 1,000 crew and passengers. Within its 42 decks were specialist departments such as engineering, science, and a sickbay. Functional and recreational facilities included lounges, gymnasiums, schoolrooms, and the legendary 10 forward for food and drinks. Its impressive arsenal of weaponry included hundreds of antimatter mines, 250 photon torpedoes, and 12 phaser arrays. If you fancy owning one yourself, there are plenty of model kits and replicas out there waiting for you. Happy trekking! Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. There are plenty more to come from my DVD collection, which includes thrillers, comedies, action, science fiction, drama, adventure, and horror.